I'm a blacksmith. Here we make all kinds of metal tools out of steel recycled from wherever we can get hold of it. It's practical and it works very well. Our main problem is fuel for the forge. There's a shortage of wood and so it's very expensive. But as far as the raw material is concerned, no problem. We recycle metal from old Soviet tanks. We break it up and melt it down.
That's where you get the metal from?
Yes, all the steel comes from old tanks. We buy them whole and then break them up to get the steel.
How many years have you been dismantling these tanks?
We began about 6 years ago, just after the Soviet troops left. There were tanks destroyed and abandoned all over the place. All we had to do was to go and get them and break them up.
How many people make a living doing this work?
There are 7 of us here at the forge.
Like many Afghans, Sandor Mohammed and the other blacksmiths who work with him have to be adaptable. These days they make agricultural tools, spades, picks, scythes and so on. For years, however, this forge made exact copies of the notorious Kalashnikov rifle, used by all factions in the bloody civil war that has raged in Afghanistan for more than 15 years, taking more than 1 million victims. What started as a war of liberation against the Soviet invaders became a civil war between rival factions when the Red Army left. And it's a struggle that's still going on. Today, the country has no shortage of arms, but it's been reduced to ruins, to the despair of many of its people, like Kahir Mohammed. A former resistance fighter, he was himself seriously wounded, while his father and 3 brothers were killed, and his home destroyed in the Red Army bombardments.
We've got arms, but we've got nothing else. We're hungry, and we've got nothing. No tools, and no seed to grow anything. What are we supposed to do with our guns? For nearly 20 years I've fought beside the Mujahideen. I was seriously wounded and held captive, but I never got any help from anyone. Just a spade, some shears, and some farm tools from the ICRC. I have Allah, God alone, to protect me.
Francois Grunewald is French. He's an agronomist working for the ICRC, the International Committee of the Red Cross, which is based in Switzerland. Since the beginning of the conflict in Afghanistan, the ICRC has provided emergency humanitarian and medical aid to the victims of war on all sides, in accordance with the organization's tradition of neutrality. ICRC is concerned that its aid, inevitably limited, should go to those in most urgent need. Francois Grunewald is visiting the Shura, the traditional assembly of local leaders, to consider the problem.
You know that we cannot help everybody because we have developed our program in very many places in Afghanistan. So it would be very important again that this year the Shura establish a list of the vulnerable farmers, those who are really the poor of the poor, really those who are in a desperate need, the people who really have a lot of problems to survive without assistance.
One very serious consequence of the war that has laid waste Afghanistan for so long is the destruction of the country's extraordinary irrigation network. These thousands of kilometers of water channels were painstakingly dug out, often underground, by the country's peasant farmers over a timescale of centuries.
Afghanistan is a country with a mountain climate, and it's very dry. In many parts, if it wasn't for irrigation, you could hardly grow anything at all. There's very little rainfall. Here there used to be traditional irrigation systems, but they've either been destroyed by the war or they've collapsed and they're falling in. The people have gone to Pakistan as refugees, and so the channels have not been maintained. We're now setting about repairing them so that farmland far down the valley can be irrigated again.
puissent être de nouveau irrigués.
We've got no drinking water and no water for irrigation either. It's a very serious problem. We have nowhere to live, it's all been destroyed. Not even a mosque where we can go and pray.
But if the channels were cleaned out, would it be better?
Yes, of course. We would have water to drink and to grow food.
Are more refugees coming home now than last year?
They started coming back last year, but now more and more are coming every day. They're coming back from all over the place.
The refugees coming home from abroad, often after several years away, are usually bereft of everything.
Seed is expensive, the tool is expensive for this displaced family. When he comes to his house, there's no tools, no seeds, nothing. They need seeds and tools. We provide, ICRC provide tools and distribute it to the farmer. Tools they produce locally in our country.
Thanks from your help.
There's enormous potential among the craftsmen of Afghanistan, but because of the war, they find themselves with no market for their products. To relaunch this sector of the economy, ICRC has set up a program for manufacturing locally made tools, spades, scythes, and these secateurs. They're handcrafted from aluminium recycled from Soviet missiles deployed on a large scale by the Red Army during the war. Once the aluminium has been melted, the secateurs are made from a mould based on a pair of secateurs brought from Switzerland. Large numbers of fruit trees were abandoned during the war and must now be cared for and pruned to encourage them back into growth. They provide a source of revenue for these villagers who were left with practically nothing when the fighting ceased. The emergency farming program set up by ICRC, the distribution of seed and agricultural tools, repairing irrigation canals and helping get the orchards going again, has been able to give long-term assistance to over 150,000 people in Afghanistan. The emphasis is on long-term, because it's far better to provide these peasant farmers with the means to cultivate their own land so they can continue to live here, than to hand out food which would all too quickly be used up. Turning swords into ploughshares is a dream which is gradually becoming a reality in Afghanistan. And it's a reality that this exhausted country badly needs. According to the Index of Human Development from UNDP, the United Nations Development Programme, an index that lists countries according to their standard of living, access to education, healthcare and life expectancy, Afghanistan is practically at the bottom of the list. It's 170th out of 174 countries listed. Behind the objective, cold statement of numbers on an index lies the harsh truth of suffering undergone by people who have had to survive 15 years of civil war. And it's not over yet. Surely the time must soon come when Afghanistan's guns will finally be laid down and transformed, one by one, into tools of peace.